For more, joining us now is Ryan Bohl. He's a senior Middle East and North Africa analyst at RANE. Ryan, just how significant are these U.S.-UK strikes, and why now?
So these are certainly an escalation from the U.S.-led coalition's standpoint. Up until this point, they have been trying to be responsive to harassment from the Houthi movement in Yemen. They've been trying to block attacks, intercept drones, intercept missiles or boats before they could reach civilian targets. So now they have struck in the territory of Yemen itself, including reportedly in the capital city. So in that sense, it is a notable escalation.
Ryan, an escalation, but we also understand that the strikes were targeted, meaning they went after supply, centers, if you like, command centers and so forth. And also they were very well, telegraphed. So I'm trying to understand here, is this really more about the messaging as well at the same time, even as the strikes were perhaps trying to degrade some of the Houthis' capabilities?
Now, of course, we're still waiting for some details to clear, but what seems to have been targeted, at least right now, is infrastructure related to attacks on civilian shipping. So drone sites, missile launching sites, etc. And as you noted, this was pretty well telegraphed that something like this could come along. And the Houthis do have mobile infrastructure. We did get reports that they were starting to evacuate people as soon as they understood that the strikes were imminent. So in that sense, they weren't designed to give a knockout blow to the Houthis' capabilities for maritime harassment, but they were designed to send a stronger political and diplomatic signal to the Houthis that if they continue civilian harassment of these ships going through the Red Sea, that the coalition is willing to respond militarily, including in the territory of Yemen itself and even in the capital city.
Ryan, what is your sense of what Houthis' response is going to be? I mean, can we expect other Iranian-backed proxies to begin ramping up attacks in the region as well?
We should expect some sort of retaliation. It's hard to tell exactly when and where that will take place, but certainly the Houthis will respond with some sort of attacks on coalition warships. Some of those may be gauged so that they aren't swarm attacks that might overwhelm coalition warship air defenses and actually result in casualties. That would be an escalation from the Houthis' standpoint. It would result in a stronger coalition response, which the Houthis may not want. At the same time, other Iranian-linked militias in places like Syria, Iraq, and even Lebanon may also carry out strikes in retaliation for this. We've seen initial reports that there may have been some incidents in places like Iraq. We're waiting to see if that's confirmed. But if it does happen, it would make a certain amount of sense for other Iranian-backed militia to carry out harassing or symbolic retaliation against U.S. forces and UK forces region-wide.
Ryan, given that high possibility and given the statement that we've already heard and read from the Houthis, could this then potentially be the start of that escalation you were alluding to earlier and this whole tit-for-tat cycle, with more attacks and with more, if you like, responses from the allies?
Right. And neither side has a clean victory strategy at the moment. Now, the Houthis were sort of looking to goad the coalition into these attacks because it's giving them a boost in domestic legitimacy amongst the Yemeni that they rule in the northern part of that country. So it's very notable that the West decided, or the coalition decided, to carry out these attacks, knowing that it would still boost the Houthis' domestic political standing. But from there, how long the Houthis have that political incentive to keep carrying out maritime attacks and provoking coalition responses, and how long the coalition has the political will to maintain its flotilla in that area and carry out a potentially extended campaign, I think that remains to be seen, and it will probably rely heavily on how many casualties might be endured by either side, and the belief by either side that either the coalition or the Houthis might be willing to escalate to true pain points. So for the Houthis, that would mean that if the West decided or the coalition decided to carry out a campaign designed to go after their leadership or to upset their position and control of the Yemeni north, for the West, that might mean going after oil infrastructure or oil targets or oil shipping through the Red Sea or in the Gulf, the Persian Gulf region at large.
What could it mean for the situation in the Red Sea, Ryan? I mean, especially the impact on global trade as a result of escalating tensions in the region?
Well, it's very unlikely that these strikes in and of themselves will convince the Houthis to stop their harassment of civilian targets, particularly ones that they associate with Israel or the United States. So we should expect some of those to continue. They may change some of their tactics to try to avoid retaliation, to try to avoid being targeted by coalition forces that might be a fair bit more responsive in the aftermath of these strikes. But I think we should expect that the Houthis will continue the harassment and that it is possible that Iran decides to start picking up some of its own naval harassment in places like the Persian Gulf or the Gulf of Oman.
Ryan, we know the strikes were led by about a dozen Western countries, allies. But how do you see Arab nations reacting? I mean, is it going to be a question of sovereignty, or will they look, the Arab nations, look at, I guess, the broader picture and also look at the importance of trade, the amount that goes through, that particular channel there?
Well, there will be different reactions from different states. So Saudi Arabia was trying to avoid this scenario. They're in delicate ceasefire talks with the Houthis. They've been fighting an intervention there for almost a decade now that they're trying to extricate themselves from. And so an escalation between their primary military ally, the United States, and their rivals, the Houthis, is not something they exactly welcome, and they're trying to distance themselves from. On the other hand, we do have more hawkish powers like the United Arab Emirates, which is running something of a proxy state in southern Yemen. They were more hawkish on the Houthis, and they were hoping to see the coalition carry out these strikes in hopes that it might push the Houthis out of territories that the Emiratis and their allies have been seeking for a long time.
Ryan, we'll have to leave it there for now, but thank you very much for your insights this morning. We've been speaking to Ryan Bohl, a senior Middle East and North Africa analyst at RANE.